All right, hello and welcome to the Flicks Forum podcast with Jesse, Heater and MJ. In this week's episode, we're looking at Netflix's 30th film, the 2017 biographical drama, The Most Hated Woman in America. It's directed by Tommy O'Haver. It stars Melissa Leo, Peter Fonda, Sally Kirkland, Rory Cochrane, Josh Lucas, Adam Scott, Juno Temple and Vincent Kartheiser. Hello.
Hey mates.
Hey boys.
What's going on?
Just been hanging out to talk movies with you boys again. It's always the best time of the week.
It is. Always have a good time.
Always.
So this week we're going to be looking at another film as usual, and we always kick it off with our little summary of the film called Fast Flicks, and Heater, kick us off.
All right, mate. So, a biography of outspoken and controversial atheist Madeleine Murray O'Hair. This story covers her rise to prominence and founding of American atheists to her eventual kidnapping and untimely demise.
Good summary.
Thank you, mate.
MJ.
Mine was super similar. I was like, there's so many similar phrases there. A telemovie type feel covering the story of US woman Madeleine Murray O'Hair and her rise to notoriety through the foundation of American atheists and her subsequent kidnapping.
Good. I've gone a true story based on a woman who decides to challenge the relationship between church and state and the many men who have let her down along the way.
Nice little touch on the men. Did you guys know this story?
I had no idea about anything to do with this story. I'd never heard of it before.
Knew very little.
You?
No, not at all. And I imagine in America this would have been pretty big, and I think probably one of the appeals to making this film would have been that a lot of people knew the story and wanted to see the inside of how it all actually
what
went
happened?
down.
Yeah. No, I didn't have a clue about
I've
any of
seen
it.
it pop up. We watch a lot of crime on Netflix, so it always pop up on things you may like to watch based on what you watch, and always just skimmed past it. So
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
No, it's all completely new to me.
Yeah, same.
All right, so we try and have a look at what we can learn about this film beforehand. So what are some things, Peter's favourite topic? Let's go do it.
All right, so let's go. It premiered at the South by Southwest Festival in March of 2017. Actually, I think it premiered at March 14 and then was released on Netflix March 24.
Correct.
So pretty quickly, they got it out onto Netflix.
So Netflix obviously picked it up from South by Southwest. Is that?
Yep, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I believe so.
I believe, that's where it happened.
And then just chucked it
And
straight on.
Straight away.
Yeah.
10 days later, it's on. Filmed in LA as well.
Definitely was filmed in LA, yes. There's a couple of little things. So in the credits, it was produced by Elizabeth Banks. You know Elizabeth Banks?
Yeah, she does a bit of that kind of stuff.
She does quite a bit of stuff now, yeah. Which
Okay.
Which I thought was quite interesting. Did you notice the logo for the film? The T and the hatred? I thought it was a nice design. It was like the T and the hatred for the logo it was like a cross. So it was like
Okay, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice little touch to go with the film. What else?
Director Tommy O'Haver.
Yeah.
I am not that familiar with his work, but he does have 11 directing credits. I know a lot of the people we've spoken about on Netflix are pretty fresh, but he's done. Just lost my notes here, but
Ella Enchanted.
Yeah. So I've heard of that film, but I don't know why I've heard of that. It's got Anne Hathaway in it.
It was pretty big when it came out.
Yeah.
He hasn't done anything before this since 2009 though.
Okay.
So it's like 8 years in between drinks for him, which was interesting.
I thought some interesting things. So there's this character David in the story, and he's hired in the film as Madeleine's manager, and in real life he was hired as a typesetter and later promoted. So I thought that was a nice little different sort of thing. I guess it's always going to happen when you watch a film based on real life. You're going to change little bits and pieces.
Kind of just cutting that step though, isn't it? Because he ended up being the manager, didn't he? He still ended up.
Yeah. So just kind of cut it out to make it a bit shorter. I think the writer as well, Irene Turner. It's their second writing credit after a movie that they did with the director Tommy O'Haver, so they've partnered with them for both their writing credits.
So that's right. The other film that he did was An American Crime,
and
that was starring Ellen Page, and it got 7.3 out of 10 on IMDb from 30,000 ratings. So I've not heard of it.
Yeah, I've never heard of it either. That's impressive though.
It's a good score, 7.3 out of 10, so it must be all right.
Great score.
You assume An American Crime has a similar sort of crime film to what we've got in this one as well. I shouldn't be saying this without knowing, so ignore me.
The other thing I thought was interesting was that they made this big deal about that Supreme Court case in the film about prayer in real life, whereas prayer in schools had already been ended prior to her coming. It was more about the Bible readings than the prayer. So I thought that was...
Do you reckon that was just easier for them to do?
I get the...
Like it's clearer, just like, let's
Yeah,
be a prayer as opposed to...
And that was
I think so.
it was a real quick, easy scene, like straight into
Yeah.
school, had to go with the teacher, and that was sort of done
Yeah.
and dusted. So I thought, that was...
I mean, it's almost one and the same, though, isn't it? Prayer versus mandatory Bible reading. It's the same notion, so...
Yeah.
It's similar. Very similar.
Yeah. Just make it easy doing it that way for a film.
So I think I looked at a couple of other things that differed from real life to the film, and obviously Madeline fired David in the film because he was just inappropriate and sort of became a bit of an arrogant pig and all that kind of stuff. But in the real life, she found out that he'd stolen $50,000 from the organisation, obviously fired him. And then David Waters pled guilty to the charges of stealing the money and he paid it back. However, Madeleine O'Hare obviously was infuriated by the law enforcement's decision not to imprison him. And so she subsequently humiliated him by publishing his history of disturbing behaviour in one of the American Atheist magazine. Obviously, we knew he's got she found out about his background. So she published all that information about him in the magazine. And obviously when Waters read the article, he sought revenge, and we all know what happened. But I find it really interesting that they gloss over that part of the film.
I would have liked it into the movie then.
Yeah,
that part there,
because it makes me think two things. Right, this movie paints Madeleine O'Hare as a little bit of like an anti-hero, especially with the way she's sort of fighting against equality and people's right for their own. She doesn't have a go at what people's feelings are, but she's basically pleading the First Amendment. And back then, that was really controversial. But right now, if someone's like, hey, I don't want to do prayer in school because I'm not religious, it's like, yeah, of course, that's fine. So they paint her as this like real progressive thinker. She's pretty much the hero of the film, even though you don't overly like her. So that kind of really taints that picture of her if you include that information. But the other thing being, if you find out that her and her son and her granddaughter have been kidnapped, this is the first guy you go to, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, does anyone hate her? Oh, everyone hates her. It's like, yeah, but this guy particularly has a reason.
Yeah.
He's stolen from her. They've got this big feud. So I guess that's another reason why they left it out, because the story is less interesting, because it's bleedingly obvious.
Yeah, it is.
I thought they did a good job in promoting that idea that she's gone missing before, she's gone off the radar before, she's got heaps of money, she could be anywhere.
Which is all true as well. So
Yeah.
that was the theory, and I think the idea of them going to New Zealand because they had money in accounts in New Zealand had been floated a lot as well. Everyone hated them. They were eventually just going to go to New Zealand. Maybe they've done it right now. But I remember thinking it whilst watching the film. Her assistant Roy, who is probably the only one who was really digging to see what was going on with them. When they showed the flashback of David at the party and that sort of feud that they had between them, I'd be thinking, if I was Roy, this guy should be a suspect. But then with all this background information, he should obviously be a suspect.
He's the number one, like, without a doubt.
And the other thing that got me was Gary Carr, who was the other guy with David. He was arrested and he wasn't charged for murder in real life. So he was charged with conspiring to kidnap and robbery, but it was David Waters who was charged for murder. So in the film, Gary kills...
He kills two of them, doesn't he? Yeah.
I found that interesting as well, because I'm like, I want to know more about this Gary guy, because he's kind of the problem here.
He's a nutcase.
But again, I think in real life, David Waters must have just done it all, and Gary was just there.
Or did he take the blame for it when Gary really did kill them?
Potentially.
Yeah, interesting.
I guess we won't know that, but... Couple of little differences between the...
Yeah, no, it's good.
That one, I don't know why you'd necessarily change it.
I would have put that in the film because, I mean, you kind of just think that the motivation is for money.
Because you kind of... Like, David in the film is almost like, oh, you got unlucky that you hired this guy who was a bit of a hothead.
Yeah.
But in reality, that probably wasn't the case.
No,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Just... I found it interesting because I actually enjoyed reading up on this afterwards, because the best thing was this is obviously such a really big story that I knew there was going to be lots of information about it. And I think my point that I said earlier about whether you guys knew the story, I think if I hadn't known the story, this would have been a lot more interesting, because I would have been like, what did happen behind the scenes with this situation? But at the time, I'm watching this movie thinking... I don't know about you guys, I thought they were going to get out of it. Like, I never thought they were going to die.
Yeah,
so I'm watching this movie just like, something happened. Like, I guess no one's really looking for you. You just chilling in this house.
When they got killed, that was a massive surprise to me. I was like, oh wow, like this is like a movie I'm watching. I assume that it's a happy ending. That the good guys get away. They win. Like it happens. Like holy shit! Like they're killing them.
Which I don't think. Which a surprise that can be a good thing in a film.
Yeah.
But I think in this one it took away from it because
it was very surprising.
It was kind of boring before that. But I reckon if you had known they were killed, you'd be watching this going, where does this go wrong?
Yeah.
Like this is kind of working out really well.
Absolutely agree.
A lot of people who watched this in America though would know that they were going to die.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So they would have interpreted it like watching it
100%.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, but I think that would have made it better. Do you reckon that would have been better? Do you reckon you would have enjoyed that more?
It's a real tough question.
I can see both sides of it. Like, I liked watching it not knowing what was going to happen, just like in most movies, you like watching it know. But for a movie, I guess like this, where it's based on a true story, and so a lot of other people know, I think it would have been cool to know kind of the ultimate end goal, so you know what's going to happen, and it's really interesting to see how they got there. So I can definitely see both sides as to.
I think I only wanted to know that though because I was bored with it. Otherwise, I was just like, this is boring. Like. Nothing's happening to them. They're just going to get out of this. The journalist or whatever is going to find them, which was nice that didn't happen. But then I was like, I didn't enjoy 3/4 of the film because of that.
Yeah.
So I didn't dislike the film at all because this is our second biographical film after Barry.
Yeah.
I think it's only the second one off Netflix so far, and I had the same sort of feeling while watching it. Was okay. So it was more just a retelling of what had happened rather than trying to investigate and work out what was happening. They were just retelling the stories.
And I guess
the reveal was it was just going to happen as it happened.
The difference between this and Barry for us is that we knew Barack Obama. So seeing him in a situation that we'd never seen him before was cool and interesting.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the best things about that film.
So what about the consensus? Some of the thoughts from reviewers and audiences?
Didn't go great. I don't think. Got a 40% on Rotten Tomatoes from 20 reviews.
20 reviews. It's such a small sample size.
Yeah,
20 is bigger than a lot of the films we get.
But then like the audience rating on there was 39% from only 237 ratings, which is quite low as well.
That's why we branch out. That's why we go to IMDb and Letterboxd.
That's why IMDb and Letterboxd I think are a lot better as well.
But then it had a 6.1 on IMDb,
which is pretty good.
Which is pretty good.
Yeah, I think you'd take that.
From 3,500, and Letterboxd was a 2.6 out of 5 from a bit over 1,400.
So that's a little bit low.
Works out to like a 5.2 out of 10 basically. So, I mean, 39, 5.2, 6.1.
You'd probably call it just under par. I think critically you'd say it didn't quite.
No,
I don't
get there. But it wasn't a flop.
Well, it wasn't an absolute flop, but it wasn't anything.
But then this is that Netflix model where this isn't one that Netflix hey, we're going to run it in cinemas for a little bit or anything like that. So the critics aren't going to go out of their way to watch it if they know that there's not going to be a lot of coverage for it.
If only 20 had seen it.
Yeah.
And when I say flop, I obviously don't mean it was a box office flop. I didn't make money. I just mean it consensus-wise, it probably just didn't quite do what they would want it to do.
Yeah.
So our overall feelings before we kick into it a little bit.
I think I kind of said that was kind of the thing for me. I felt like I was watching a telly movie the whole time and wasn't that interested in it.
I thought it was pretty average. I was pretty in for the first kind of half, really like the first half, and then I thought the second half just dragged, and I'm like, nah, come on, let's get this over with now. I was quite bored in the second half.
I thought it did a good job of telling the story of a character that none of us obviously knew much about at all.
I'll give it that.
So it opened up the possibilities of looking a little bit further if you're a bit more interested, but that's where I'm at, I guess.
Yeah,
it was a good narrative of a person's life.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah. I actually so kind of finished watching this and actually pretty much thought straight to MJ what you said. I'm pretty sure about the siege of Chadettville, where I finished watching this and went, this probably should have been like a 45-minute documentary.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure if a movie was needed. I mean, if I wanted to know about this, I think just how the movie was done, I think I would have preferred this as just a documentary to get all the facts rather than actually watching a movie, because I don't think the movie worked too well.
Well, I spoke to you guys earlier in the week where the day after I'd watched this film, I listened to a podcast called Forensic Files, which is literally an audio recreation of the Forensic Files TV show. So I had a look into it, and it was like 2002. This episode had aired, and it's literally this story. So if you did want that doco sort of thing, you can Forensic Files.
To your point, actually, about Siege of Chadettville, I guess the difference between this and probably this plays more into Most Hated Woman in America. The difference is, if this story was really big in America, then I can understand more why this movie was made.
Yep.
But Cedar Jadetville felt like a really underground story anyway, right?
Yeah.
So no one really knew about it, and then they wanted to tell the story. So that's for Jadetville. I was like, why do you make this story? Yeah, like, this doesn't need to be a movie kind of thing. So that's kind of the difference with that. Now, more of a biopic on one particular person.
Yeah.
I think, how good was the makeup actually on Melissa Leo to age her?
Yeah,
like,
it was good.
obviously they used the same person through a period of 40 years, give or take.
Yeah.
Roughly that.
30,
I
40
reckon.
years. I think they did a really good job on that.
Yeah. I thought Melissa Leo, she gave a great performance. I thought her acting was amazing.
I can only assume that was, like bang on from what she was like as a person.
I really like the setup of her straight away. So the sort of the opening scenes then with the bags on their, or the coverings on their head.
Hoods, yeah.
And she has a go at the son Garth straight away because he can't do the knots. And she's like, I should have sent you to scouts. So you know straight away that she's this hard ass sort of matriarch who's, has things her way or, the highway almost. So I like that. And I thought it closed well. They had this interview at the end where, the best part of her life was being a woman, a grandmother and a mother. So I thought they sort of rounded her character out quite well.
Yeah.
It's actually cool how they did those scenes where they were clearly interview scenes done on a TV show, but they just substituted Melissa Leo doing it as opposed to... Because there were some other scenes where they had news stories and stuff that I think they flicked between actual footage and then their characters doing it.
I liked the intertwining of the real footage, but I didn't like the cut of the real the actors from the life, because I thought it was too obvious.
It felt different.
It just didn't flow. Yeah.
I like it was a brave decision to do that though. I think it looks better because could you imagine if they actually had just chucked in the real Madeline?
I wouldn't have liked that.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
Yeah, and that started really early too, like that protest with the black protests for the
that one actually looked okay because
with
black
the kid,
and white.
black and white, exactly. So that was definitely.
I think to the point I kind of touched on earlier, they really wanted her. This was almost like an opportunity to paint someone who was really hated. The film's called The Most Hated Woman in America, and for a long time was ostracized for her beliefs. They really wanted to paint her out to be this real progressive thinking hero, because the notion of giving people freedom of speech or the chance to do what they want to do is 100% what we're doing right now. It's 2019 now. This film was made in 2017. 100% what we're doing now, and she was just way ahead of the curve. So I think they used it as an opportunity to paint this person in a really positive light, and maybe one of the first opportunities to do that.
No, I agree. I thought she was good. She was a good character.
I thought she was still dicey. Like, I don't think she's this real hero.
Yeah, I didn't love her, but I liked her.
Yeah, I know. And
that probably goes down, like, sort of for Melissa Leo did an awesome job.
Melissa Leo was
really
also fantastic. I thought she was brilliant.
Yeah.
Really
any other characters that you want to discuss?
What more the characters? I'm a fan of Josh Lucas. He's in a lot of movies and plays a lot of kind of small bit parts. I'm not sure I've seen him play the bad guy too often.
I don't think they... And you know what? They made him like an okay bad guy too.
Like, it wasn't until the very end where I was kind of... Because I think at one point in the movie, he's like, for kidnappers, we're pretty hospitable or something, because he's getting them food. Like, he didn't seem that kind of bad. But, I hadn't really seen him play the villain. Or even if he's a villain at all. And I thought that was just really interesting.
He's the guy in Sweet Home Alabama, yeah?
He is.
Reese Witherspoon.
Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah.
He's the love interest.
He plays like small roles in a lot of things, but I think
he's in Red Dog.
Times.
Red Dog.
Yeah. He's in The Lincoln Lawyer. He's good in The Lincoln Lawyer.
I didn't like that criminal Danny. So you had
the good criminal.
The good criminal, yeah. I felt like that they tried to make him good right near the end.
So that was probably because of real life.
Is that the kid?
Yeah, the young guy.
Yeah. And it was like, he's talking to Madeline. He's like, I'm going to Florida to see my kid. And they're trying to make him out. And I thought, this is real obvious now. You're going to die.
They did it pretty late.
They did it real late.
I feel they have that in like just so many movies though, where it's like kind of the young kidnapper who's kind of been just like he's been forced into doing this. But he's the one with a conscience and stuff.
Yeah. And in real life, that's kind of exactly what happened. Is he built a relationship with
Madeline,
with all of them.
Yeah.
And they killed him at the end because they're like, no, this guy's
he's gonna
rat us out.
Yeah.
But you're right, that kind of felt really late. Because
Felt really
when they
late.
started doing that, I'm like, oh, he's going to like bust him out of there or something.
Yeah.
But I guess they were just like, oh crap, we haven't developed him into what actually happens to him. The role for me was Adam Scott as Jack Ferguson, the Juno.
Yeah.
That felt like a really nothing role.
Absolutely.
For someone like Adam Scott's a good actor, and he's got enough of a name to sort of lift a film. But I get the vibe that the journalist played a big part in the real story. But it felt like they just had to put him in this story.
It's like they wanted
do anything.
like a name actor in there, and they've thrown him in without really having a role for him. We're just like, hey, we just want to get this guy in there because it was.
Well, I think there would have been like a journalist that was across this story the whole time.
But,
Like,
there just wasn't enough.
Because like
It was more a progression point. It was just to check in to see where they were at.
that someone was looking for
yeah.
them. But like the fact that no one actually found them during the kidnapping, and that no one knew about them until 3 years later or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell was the point of like they didn't dig deep enough, they didn't go anywhere with
But
it.
that's because no one thought they were kidnapped. People just thought they were missing.
But those two did, right?
Yeah.
Like
There was a whole thing
journalist
that they were
and Roy,
investigating it,
They
yeah.
were
that's two people.
That was
Like,
short, but that was short. But then why even, like it's almost just like have a token scene where someone's
put it
looking
in
for
there?
them.
Yeah.
Don't have it like constantly happening and nothing comes off with it.
I will say though, I did enjoy seeing his beard. Good beard.
Beard and a few things.
Yeah, that was a good beard. I liked it because I don't think I'd even seen him with a beard before. I'm used to seeing him without one. And then first time he comes on screen, I'm like, oh, Adam Scott's got a beard. I like it.
Is this the 30th Netflix film? 31st?
30th.
30th.
Yeah.
So I think he comes up again in like the 46th film.
With a beard?
I can't remember.
Oh,
I feel like
better.
I've seen him with a beard. I know he hasn't got one in Parks and Rec, but
Yeah, see, that's kind of where I know him from.
have
And
I
like
seen him with a beard?
a film like Step Brothers as well, he's got no beard and...
he's got that little baby face, hasn't he? So.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just thought it wasn't a great role.
I think we're going talking on far too long about someone's beard in this movie.
Rory Cochrane, who played Gary Carr, they showed glimpses of his like reckless sociopathic side. So I guess the audience wasn't shocked when he did what he did. But I felt like he was such a minor character and he played such a significant part in the film that I actually would have liked if they dug a little bit deeper on this character. Like, you kind of knew that he was a loose cannon, but he was the one that derailed the whole thing. And it's like this guy who just sits in the corner the whole time.
Yeah,
Wow.
just being creepy towards the granddaughter.
I want to chuck this in now because I had this in my questions for later.
Yep.
Would the film have been better if it focused on one protagonist? So like you're saying here, you could have just focused on the kidnappers and their story, or you could have just focused on the journalist and the journalist's story, or you could have just focused on the family. Whereas I feel like they've tried to chuck in everyone that was involved in the story rather than...
Yes,
good point.
You could
I
have
never
just
thought
gone-
about that, but now you say that,
If you just have the point of view from one person, then it could have flown like... It would have run a lot more smoother.
Absolutely, I reckon that would have been so much better.
If I'm
That's
recutting this
excellent.
film, I'm dropping the journalist story completely.
Completely, yeah.
You don't need it. And I'm probably focusing more on the kidnappers.
I want a movie just based on the kidnappers now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so much better.
Good question.
Very
You
good.
can, you can still have the flashbacks with bits and pieces of how they got to that stage of kidnapping her, but the story's
absolutely.
point of
I'm
view.
all for even having more of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Really good point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Jesse. That's great.
Probably the last character I wanted to talk about was Bill Jr. The son was the emotional connection to the story supposed to be Bill and the mum and them kind of falling out.
So
And
Bill was the one that wasn't kidnapped.
Correct.
Yes.
Sorry,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep. Sorry. I just wanted to make sure.
I kind of felt like they tried near the end to show a bit of regret on both of them, like, oh, I wish we didn't fall out. And they kept harping back to Madeline and Bill. And I felt like they tried really hard to make that the emotional connection and me as an audience to care about, oh, I wish they didn't fall out with Bill, or like, she's still got Bill out there and he's... But it didn't...
It literally goes back to literally just what I said before. You could have had that story just on their relationship instead. Yeah.
But
And then you would have cared about it because the
first
first
half of the film, or first
Exactly.
Yeah.
third of the film.
you couldn't really avoid the falling out though, like because didn't Madeline take custody of his daughter?
Yeah, and I'm okay with
So
the
it's
fall.
like-
I don't care about the falling out. I think I was supposed to care more that they did fall out.
Okay,
When they fell
yeah,
out, I
that's
was
what
like,
you
I
mean.
don't really
Okay.
care. Like,
Yeah.
you guys are on different pages anyway.
I feel like
kept
that.
harping back to
especially
it.
maybe at the end as well, kind of
Yeah.
when he's saying, let's not say a prayer because she wouldn't have liked that. It's
Yeah,
kind of like he
of
kind of understands her. So yeah, maybe you were.
I kind of wanted to
supposed to
feel
care.
more loss for that breakup.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel much in this film. And I thought they were trying with that. I'm like, I can see what you're trying to do, but I just don't think you're quite doing it. But then maybe I'm just wrong and that was a plot point. I don't know.
I agree. I think the breakup, it was just in that office pretty much where he walked out, and that wasn't really as impactful as it could have been, because I felt like I liked the build up of the relationship with her and the son from the start, because
you know it's going to end.
Yeah, and because it brings to her mind, he has this thing like, there's what's wrong with people, and you're always complaining about the world's wrong, and you never do anything. So that was sort of that motivation for her to do things, was because of Billy. So I like that they kept that relationship going throughout the film. But I thought that the way it was done was really weird, because when they go missing, the first thing Roy does is he goes and sees Billy in his office, and I thought that it was obvious, or they tried to set it up as if, I want you to think that Billy's a suspect straight away.
Yeah.
I felt like that scene with Roy and him sitting in the desk, it's like, we're setting Billy up to be the suspect. He's the one. So we've gone from them being kidnapped, and the first person we see next is Billy. It's like, here's an obvious thing we want you to think of him as the suspect the whole way through. Where I don't, like you're talking about, you need to focus more on their relationship rather with the mum, and not make him as the suspect the whole way through, because you're thinking the whole way through, is Billy going to turn on him? Until
as soon as you see the kidnappers, he's not. It also sets up the fact that, because you see Bill as an older man, a man who's already fallen out with his mum, before you see the young Bill.
Yeah.
So that this relationship that they're showing between Madeline and Bill as mother and son that grows up, and they got the same ideas, and they grow up and they work together. That's never going to end well.
Yeah.
But they set that up straight away. Maybe if they didn't do that, and when they broke up, when they actually did have that sort of falling out, it would have more impact than you going, well, I'm waiting for this to happen, I'm waiting for this to happen.
I agree with that, I think we should have seen those early scenes first, not knowing how it was going to end.
Because what a great relationship they had as mother and son.
Oh, it was brilliant.
When he was a kid.
Because the reveal of the kidnappers was pretty slow, realistically. Like, you didn't, because there's a few cuts where it's like, you see they recognise who's kidnapped him, but they don't show you the faces. So in my mind, I was still thinking, maybe this is Billy. Maybe this is Billy that's kidnapped him. So I've got that confusing thing through my head where I'm like, okay, we're going back. Billy seemed like he didn't want anything to do with working out where they were. So I'm like, is he guilty? Is he a suspect? Yeah, okay. And then just to throw it, sort of, that's where I was at. Talk about some scenes? Talk about some scenes. All right. I thought the slow reveal over Madeline knowing who David was and how the family knew him, I liked that. I thought that was good with the slow reveal, but then again it goes in against...
As in from the hoods being...
Yeah, from the hoods being revealed, and then like working out how he worked for her, and
that was good.
That relationship. Yeah, I thought
learning more and more about David, because initially she's like, it's you, and we're like, who are you?
Yeah, exactly.
Who are you?
You're Josh Lucas, but who are you?
Yeah. So maybe this story could have been better if it was just told in a linear way.
That's so true.
Just go from 1960s right through to the end, rather than cutting back.
Or just tell the story of them being kidnapped. I don't care about all the stuff that's happening on the outside. Just focus on them, and if you've got a flashback for them, I'm cool with that.
Yep. On that scene as well, I can't explain why I like this, but he takes off the son's hood first, and he's like, oh my god, and it cuts to Josh Lucas, and he just nods to him. And he takes off the granddaughter's hood. She's like, oh my god, and he nods to her as well. I really liked his nod to each one. I have no idea why. I cannot explain to you why. What kind of acknowledgement it kind of was. Maybe like,
hey, it's me.
Yep, I know you. Maybe it's kind of like, yes, if I hurt you, I'm not going to hurt you. Or I'm not sure like how it's supposed to be. But I really liked his nod to each one as they kind of went, oh my god.
Because I thought that was Billy. Yeah, they're nodding. Oh my god, it's Billy. It's Billy. That was what I was thinking of.
I like that nod from Josh Lucas.
Yeah, good. What else?
I like the opening scene. It opens and you've got three of them sitting there in a bed with hoods on their head. Straight away I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting. You've got three people who have been abducted and they're sitting there. I'm intrigued as to how this happened. So, I mean, as I said, I liked the first half of this movie, and I think that started because I really liked the opening scene, because it got me intrigued straight away as to what was going on.
Was that the opening scene initially, or did they have that empty house with the dogs first?
They may have that. May have that. Maybe,
they did, because I had that in my questions. I wanted a Todd update straight away. The dogs were barking. Shocking.
So Todd was barking because initially you just hear the dogs.
Yeah.
And he hated that because he's like, where's this coming from? And then you see the dogs. It's like, oh my God, there it is. And they keep referencing the dogs, and the dog's like, yeah, they would have left the dogs. I'm like, stop talking about the dogs. Don't go back to the dogs, because my dog can't handle other dogs on screen. So there's definitely... And you know what? He just didn't quite settle throughout the whole film because he kind of knew the dogs were never far away as well.
Well, the dog was back at the end. He was sitting on the couch with Roy. And I was like, oh, don't bark.
Oh, God. Yeah, this is a bad dog film.
Anything else, Heath?
I've got a few more.
Yeah,
if you want
no, go.
So I mean, we mentioned before the scene when Madeline goes into her son's school and yells at the teacher and tells her, she's not, excuse my son from prayer in class. I thought that was good and it was a funny scene. I like that.
Good.
I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Do you want to? Yeah, do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, keep going.
Oh,
you're on a roll here.
You're on a roll. Yeah, fill us in.
I liked I think it was the initial radio interview with Madeline, and she's talking about that stuff, and it culminates in her. She's getting out, and she's got the Jesus who's like, Jesus loves you, so does Santa, and then he shoots her.
Yeah,
I really like that scene as well.
That was one of my scenes I did not.
You didn't like it?
The whole
I really like the Jesus loves you line, and she just responds with, so does Santa. Kind of like that she keeps up that thing of I don't care.
So it was less about that part of it. It was more about the radio. So the radio scene, I thought the acting was shocking by everyone. She was fine.
Yeah.
The DJ or whatever who was there and the people calling in was awful. Just the way they were reading their lines was so bad. Okay. And then when watching that scene, thinking, why are we having a radio interview of her like answering nothing? Mm. And then when she walks out, I actually thought they really glossed over the fact that she got shot at. But then you learn that, like, I guess a few people tried to.
Yeah.
But I'm like, she just got shot at. Like, and then like next thing she's like in hospital or whatever, and it's like, she just got shot at. Like, how are you guys just?
And that scene led to a good spot where Billy could leave, stick with his mum rather than his kid and his wife as well. So it had a nice little flow.
I like Jesus shooting her. It was good. My only other one was the end killing scene. It just got really intense. I guess also because in the second half of the movie I was bored. Like I got bored in the second half, and then it suddenly climaxes with these guys just decide to kill them, and I was like, oh my god, this is intense. So that kind of just picked me up a bit more, and I guess it kind of took it up a notch when I was kind of bored and needed something to bring me back up. I was like, oh, this is intense. Like, oh, what's going on here?
Yeah. Cool. It was out of nowhere.
It was, yeah.
I liked the scenes with the Reverend and her doing the tour and making cash. I thought that was a nice little thing where he's having a go about making about money and that sort of thing. And then he's like, yeah, I'm happy to join. Let's do this together.
See, I wonder, obviously that really happened.
Yeah.
I wonder how many people knew how much of because they paint that Reverend out to be a real money hungry dick. Yeah. And I wonder if he has that reputation or they just gave him that reputation. Yeah. Because I'm thinking if you're watching this and you're that guy,
you're not going to be happy.
Enjoying this
what the hell?
Yeah.
I thought the scenes with David and Madeline playing cards at different times was good. It sort of showed the power that at different times each of them had. So they had the scene where they're in the office at night and they're playing cards, and he says, I let her win because she had the power or whatever, and then you go back where he's got them kidnapped and he beats her. So I liked that card analogy of...
Was it an analogy because it was actually explicitly explained though? Because I agree, as an analogy it's fine, but then he's just like, I let you win, now I'm winning. It's like, I know, but don't say it.
I guess you didn't mean it, but I liked that idea. I guess that's right.
I wasn't a big fan of those card scenes. I
didn't dislike them, but I
thought that was just kind of...
Subtle. Subtle's fun.
Just dragging it out. Like, come on, let's get to something more interesting than you guys playing cards.
I enjoyed the Christmas drink sort of scene where the blow up between the two of them, where he completely flips. And I thought straight away I was like, well, this guy's creepy.
That escalated really quickly.
And out of nowhere I was like, well, okay, you have quite a lot of bad energy. He was straight onto that.
So my note for that one, and I touched on it earlier, is it made him a painfully obvious suspect. And Roy, because they show Roy's reaction. He's at the party, right? They show his reaction to David acting like a psychopath. But then who could have kidnapped Madeline? I have no idea.
Oh, goodness. And towards the end, it was sort of the night of when they're all going to get killed. They're all the three of them. So there's Madeline, Garth, and Robin, and they're in the bed. And there's this high angle shot of them all lying there together as this close knit family, and just sort of showed that. I tried to go back to that message of everything she does is for her kids and her family.
We should have known, shouldn't we? That was going to be the end. Because that was nice. So.
Well, there was a quite dramatic change in the soundtrack from that scene. As soon as the granddaughter's lying in bed awake, the music just goes. I'm like, okay,
I'll be honest.
Go
when she got up and got a drink or have something
Yeah.
or whatever. I thought he was going to rape her.
Yeah.
So I was like,
That's in my scenes, yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So when he killed her, because you don't see him kill her.
No.
They all
Cuts
just
to black. It just cuts to
They all
black.
just come out. They all just come out, and she's just a corpse, basically.
Well, because it cuts to black and then it cuts to the news coverage
goes to
of
another-
of the disappearance or whatever else. Yeah.
So that surprised me, but I was making a point that I've completely
Forgotten? That's all right. It's no stress.
So,
we might recharge that.
So that's all I've got for standout scenes. Look at some forgettable ones.
well, just going on what MJ was saying there. So, yeah, in the scene where the granddaughter comes out and I think she's getting a drink.
See, it was a segue I was making.
Yeah. And then you got Gary Carr, was it?
Gary, yeah.
Yeah, Gary. He comes up behind her, and straight away I just started feeling really uncomfortable, and I'm thinking, I really hope I'm not about to see a rape scene.
Yeah.
Like, it just made me feel really uncomfortable going, oh no, what is going to happen?
And I
This is
remembered what I
not
was
going
going
to
to
be
say.
good.
Why didn't she scream?
Yeah.
At that
Yeah.
point, why didn't she scream? Because she knew that David and the other Danny,
Yeah.
she knew that they didn't want this guy doing anything bad.
Yeah.
So she could have screamed.
He'd been creepy to her before
Yeah,
as well.
and
And it's
they-
not like a first time being like, hey, what are you doing here?
and they told
Yeah.
him off for that. Like,
Yeah.
pull your head in, mate.
But I
Yeah.
feel like there was some sort of noise because that woke the other two up. It didn't wake.
Yeah, I think they woke up to her like body hitting the ground or something.
Yeah.
But at that
Yeah,
point,
she
when he's
should've
like
screamed.
behind her, he's
Yeah.
not like quick or
Yeah.
violent or anything.
Yeah.
Scream.
They're all in this little kind of
Yeah.
motel room or something. Like, she screams, everyone's going to hear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just feeling really uncomfortable as he was standing behind her going, oh, I'm not sure I want to see what's about to happen.
And cut to black. So
Yeah, so I was glad about that, but it was still making me feel really uncomfortable going, oh, I hope I'm not about to see what I think we're going to see.
Cool. Anything else that I didn't like?
you keep going.
I don't really have any more standout scenes. It was just kind of the second half of the movie for me just dragged. Like, I didn't really like anything in the second half because I was just like, nah, come on, I feel like I'm seeing the same stuff. Let's get moving. What's happening here?
One for me that I struggled with was when they jumped to 3 years later. So obviously, they did that before we knew that they were killed.
Yes.
So it felt really jerky and out of the blue because obviously we didn't know they died, but it really softened the blow of what that scene we just spoke about could have been. If we had have seen them go, she's dead, now Garth's dead,
Yeah.
now Madeline's dead, rather than 3 years later you're like, oh, no one's found them. You're like, oh, well, they obviously died. Like, and I think that really softened the blow because I had no idea that they were killed. And then as soon as you go 3 years later, you're like, oh, well, they did. But they lost all that impact they could have had from that. And then they show the scene anyway later on about how it happened. It's
When they're interviewing him in jail, yeah.
yeah, so I feel like that was a really missed opportunity. I don't know. Did you guys...
It's tough because, they needed to tie up because Danny makes that phone call, sends that letter to this guy who the police are obviously interviewing 3 years later. Yeah.
Is it his brother? I think it was his brother.
His brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess they needed to tie that up a little bit, yeah. But again, that's probably what we're talking about. We don't need this out of joint cut
Yeah.
where it's. all
They could
that
have
time.
killed them though.
Yeah.
They could have done that scene where they killed them.
Yeah.
And then gone
Create the
news
tension,
report
then
3
gone
years
for it,
later.
yeah.
Because then I would have been sitting there like, whoa, they killed him.
Yeah.
But there's that also.
It's like they're trying to play with your mind, saying, "Oh, maybe they still got away."
No, but I think that goes to the point where they're expecting people to know the story when they're watching it.
Yep.
So they're trying to be a bit more creative about the way they tell the story. And as someone who doesn't know anything of the story, I think we missed out.
Yeah, a little bit disappointing as a film, I guess, if the creators are thinking, "Hey, you already know this story." When Netflix is a worldwide company now, there's a lot of people that probably don't.
Yeah, what are countries that don't?
Yeah. I didn't like the scene at the end with Danny having to cut the bodies up as well, and then he gets whacked over the head with the shovel. I was like, yeah, I don't know, just yeah.
I guess they had to show him getting killed at some point.
Yeah.
They make him do all the dirty work.
Yeah, poor guy. Anything else?
No, nothing.
Nah, I mean, that's it.
So what's the movie trying to say a little bit? I guess there's I guess it was trying to say heaps of stuff. Really,
Too much?
too much. Yeah. I'd probably go down that
Yeah,
one as
that's
well.
not a bad point. I think we spoke about how they could have condensed things and told the story differently.
Yeah.
So I was trying to look at greed a little bit, like money. Everyone was their motives. The pastor, Madeline was chasing cash.
Absolutely. Siphoning cash.
Siphoning cash. David's
And
after
David's
cash.
chasing money.
So everyone's after cash.
Lots of money.
What did you think about this non-conformist thing that they tried to push throughout as well? So they tried to push, at the start they made that comment where when he was a real little kid, Billy's like, we're non-conformists, we don't follow what society does. Did they I don't know if they did a good enough job of showing us that she was this groundbreaking sort of person.
But that's the thing, is she wasn't doing it for the sake of not conforming. She was doing it because she believed.
Yeah, like it was more she's standing up for her beliefs.
But the title is the most hated woman in America. Did you get the feeling that she would, like, they didn't show that much hatred towards her?
I didn't think she was that hated.
But obviously she was. She got this nickname. So obviously there were things that, and they didn't show. I don't know. They didn't show that reaction from the greater public. I guess
you had I think in that first interview before she's shot, you got people who were ringing up and who are abusing her.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I'm sure there's plenty of people who are going, no, she's right. I agree with her. Like, you know, I don't want my kids to be taught religion in school because I'm not religious. So
and all the hate mail that she got.
Yeah, exactly. But I did
like that letter she opened up with a poo in it.
She was gonna like frame it.
Yeah.
There was sort of the religious sort of side things too, like atheism and the freedom to follow or believe in what you want to believe in.
Yeah, and
standing up for your rights, standing up for who you are.
And this movie is obviously very pro standing up for your rights because they paint that as a very important thing and a very good thing, where at the time it wasn't a good thing. So it's almost like a bit of a dig at the way society was back then.
Yeah. And there's also a bit on also kind of how far people will go. So like how far Madeline went to, you know, like obviously that relationship with her son kind of was gone. So from that money, how far those kidnappers were going to go, they ended up committing murder. So a bit of that, just
they applaud her. Like they applaud her for going, and it's almost is a good thing. It's like you work hard, you can achieve what you want to achieve, and if you're doing that in the workforce, which she technically was, you can achieve a lot. It's just that what she was doing was super controversial at the time. If she was doing that now, no one would blink an eye.
Yeah, she'd have heaps of supporters, and
I almost would have liked to have seen a film of her story made in the 90s, so before their kidnappings, just to see what they would have made of her story with her still being alive.
True. Yeah.
That would have been a real interesting sort of take on whether
90s is probably that period where things are changing a little bit, but they're still probably less than 50% of
because there's still this constitutional rights thing in America that everyone, you know, these First Amendments, you protect your freedom, your speech, your religion, but there were so many people against her taking her rights and those things. So it was really interesting. I spoke briefly before about power as well. This power between who is the most powerful sort of person. So it's all about who wants to be in power. Madeline, David, fighting.
It's a weird kind of power though when you're kidnapping someone. Like
it is.
It's the most forced power, crude power.
And it's like almost like this retaliation power from David, where it's
100% retaliation.
It's not about He just wants to,
If you look at the real life story, it's
massively retaliation,
I guess she retaliated first.
Exactly.
And also as well, like this theme of men as well, and I said that in my opening, that men betrayed her the whole film. There was not a man that didn't betray her at some stage, maybe Garth.
And
but even in bed, Garth at the end, like she had to go at him for calling her names and he called her like a real bad word. Yeah. So even you could see that he'd let her down at times as well.
Roy didn't betray her though.
No, Roy
true.
Roy stayed true.
Because she stood up for him being a gay black guy.
He stayed true to her.
That's a very good point.
Very good point. And he kept her dog at the end too.
He did.
Yeah. Anything else from the film, theme wise? No. What do we take from it then?
It's interesting actually chatting about that. This has been a really good discussion and a lot more of a discussion than I thought we would have on it, because to me I found the film generally pretty boring. I don't think it was a bad film, and I didn't hate it and I wasn't offended by it. It was just kind of happening on screen and I was watching it. But talking about it, I'm surprised how much I've got to say and we've all got to say about it. So that's because I didn't really feel anything from it. But it's been an interesting conversation. So I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, because I'm sort of like saying a bad comment with good connotation at the back of it. But.
And that's almost for me from this film as well, that we spoke about the structuring of time a bit, about the way it was set out. In my notes I liked the structuring of time better than Take the 10, but it still wasn't effective. Because they were similar. Take the 10 was like all upwards, backwards, forwards. I liked this more than that, but I still wasn't sold on this.
Take the 10 did it really badly though. They kind of got confused with what they were trying to do with time. Whereas this was deliberate. This was really deliberate, and I think they just made some mistakes not mistakes. I think it might have been more effective to me.
Yeah, everyone has a different opinion. That is fine.
Exactly.
Anything else we took from the film?
Nah, I kind of said mine at the start.
It's okay for Netflix. It's okay for a Netflix film.
Yeah, it's perfect for
Netflix. Yeah. All right, IMDb. We sometimes jump on IMDb to check out people, actors, actresses.
I got lots in this one.
Yeah, I had two for this one too.
So I had, firstly, Rory Cochrane, who plays Gary Carr.
Yeah, I had him too.
So
I had him too. He was my one.
the first thing, have you guys seen Empire Records?
No.
No, I've
You
heard
should
it.
see Empire Records. It's excellent. And I picked him straight away. He's Lucas in Empire Records. But I've also recently watched Dazed and Confused, and he's Slater in Dazed and Confused.
Okay.
And then I didn't actually realise this after watching those two, but he's also one of the guys in Argo who gets into the embassy. And
That's where I knew him from. As soon as he jumped on the screen, and I'm like, I know you. We're going to IMDb. Argo, you're one of the Americans that's hiding out in the Canadian embassy, and I can picture you exactly who you are in Argo now as well.
Right?
So yeah, he was mine as
He's in a
well.
lot of stuff.
I remembered him from CSI Miami. Like, he was in that heaps.
What a
heaps
great
and heaps.
show.
And I looked at him like, oh my god, you are. Yeah.
He was in the normal CSI as well, actually.
He played that character. Yeah, he was in
he
multiple
played them all.
crossovers,
Yeah,
He's
that was a good show.
He's had a decent career for someone who's not that big a name.
And I had, so my other one's a CSI one as well. The cop that walks in at the start when the dogs are barking and Roy's there.
yeah.
The cop that walks in to
he's from
investigate,
CSI as well.
Jose Zuniga. Yeah, he's from CSI and he was in Law and Order a bit as well.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
So a double CSI one.
Yeah.
I also had Roy. There's a movie which I'm pretty sure neither of you guys have seen because I did check your letterbox to see if you've seen it or not. And this is a movie I would highly, highly recommend, especially for you, Jesse.
Yeah.
It's called The Triumph, but it's also called The Ron Clark Story.
Okay.
Ron Clark, who's like a teacher in like a Harlem primary school. And it's a really, really good film. Matthew Perry plays Ron Clark. But Roy is like the bad kid in that class. He's like he's like in elementary school at the time, and I recognise the face, and it's
All right, I'll have to add that to my watch list.
I highly recommend it. It's an
Triumph.
excellent film. I also had a reverse IMDb it because I watched this film about a week ago, and in between that, I watched Spider-Man: Homecoming, and the guy who plays Garth is in Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Yeah.
So I was watching Spider-Man, and I IMDb it, and I'm like, oh, he's from the most hated woman in America. So I got a reverse IMDb it.
That's
at the time.
cool. That is cool.
Yeah, very good.
Had that same dirty mustache.
All right, so any questions that we have for each other from the film? No, I think I've asked a couple already. I asked about the dog update, so we've got a good Todd update.
My question is, why do you watch this movie? Is this because you're a bit of a history buff and you want to learn about it?
I think so.
Because I'm not recommending this to someone as, I just want to watch a movie on a Saturday night. And
I feel like it's almost one of those films that maybe was this true crime wave that's sort of been going the past couple of years, and it's like, we can talk through this film, open it with a kidnapping, hook these people on, it's a crime, it's a kidnapping, how'd the kidnapping happen, but then it goes in a completely different way.
I think you've got to have some knowledge of the actual story of the event itself to be able to appreciate it.
Because I would rather watch an actual biographical crime. Like, I'd rather watch a Making a Murderer episode than this, because it's actually just not pretending to be a narrative story. And my other question is, and I should have looked this up rather than made it a question, what happened to Roy after all this?
True.
Like, did he
Go
get
on to-
any...
yeah.
Like, is he running the company, or is he...
Don't know.
Well, they had after the credits, they had all, like, where they were all at now, but they didn't even mention it.
that's why I think I was like, hang on.
I wanted to know as well, so there was, apparently in real life, Madeline had a lot of communist sort of connections in real life, and there's only one time in the film where there was any mention of it, was where Billy got beat up when he was young, and the kids out the front are like, you commies.
Yeah, I remember that actually.
So why, like, I thought if that was such a big part of her life, I thought that maybe they could have incorporated that a little bit more just to sort of show what was going on.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right, I think we're ready to wrap this up. So on Flix Forum, we give our films a rating out of 5, and then we go around the table and add it up to give an overall rating between the three of us. Hita, what did you think?
All right, so I enjoyed the first half of the movie. I thought it started really well and it got me in. And then kind of the second half, I thought really dragged out a lot. And as I mentioned, I probably thought this probably would have worked better as a documentary. But I still found it really interesting, and I thought Melissa Leo gave a really great acting performance. I give it 2.5.
Well done, Melissa Leo.
Good. So I thought it was an enjoyable film to take in content really about the life of an important character. So the acting was good. The reveal of the story was fairly decent, but it wasn't groundbreaking. But I still thought it was fun to watch, so I'm giving it a 3 out of 5. 3, just 3. I nearly slipped. I was like, no, just 3.
So I just found it a little bit too hard to shake that telemovie feel, and therefore I just couldn't quite get into it. As I've said, I reckon if I had been familiar with the story, it might have been a little bit more interesting to see that dynamic of the kidnapping. but without that, it was a little bit dull. It was a little bit slow, and it just felt a little bit purposeless without any context. So 2 stars for me.
All right. So out of 5, what does it give us an average of?
I'll try not to stuff it up this time. 2.5.
2.5. Oh,
That's a clean number.
2.5 out of 5. So we are on social media. We have Facebook.
You better believe it.
We don't have a Snapchat, but we have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Instagram.
Call us out on the things.
I'm struggling today. We always chuck a question up there. The question this week that I want you guys as our audience to answer is, what could be a better title for this film? Because I like we spoke about before, I don't think the title of The Most Hated Woman in America really came through enough in this film. So what would be a better title for this film?
Interesting.
Yeah. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. We love our subscribers. Flicks Forum on Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, YouTube as well. Please follow us if you can. Next week, the film we're looking at is the 2017 romantic science fiction film, The Discovery. It's directed by Charlie McDowell. Stars Jason Segel, Rooney Mara. Is it Segel or Segel? Segel, good. Jason Segel, Rooney Mara, Jesse Plemons, Riley Keough, and Robert Redford. So
Robert Redford.
It's a huge cast.
Jeez.
I was going to say this is a shorter one.
No, as in.
That's the biggest cast we've had on Netflix.
Robert Redford. I'm pumped.
Make
sure you jump on Letterboxd as well.
Letterboxd. Follow us at Letterboxd. Follow us at Letterboxd, and watch this film before next week so you can enjoy our discussion. We don't ruin it too much for you.
Yep, please do.
Good chatting.
Good chatting. Thanks, boys. More out of that than I thought.
That was really good fun.
All right, and we will see you guys next week.
See you next week.